So all this hysteria and stuff really is just for the midterms, right? Like, liberals, Democrats, they don't do very good when it comes to the midterm elections on average because they have a younger voter base who isn't usually invigorated to go out and vote during the midterm. So all this shit about kids, about the parkland kids as well being shot, and all this shit going on right now with the families being separated at the border, or families, like who knows if they're just actually, kid smugglers, because you have no way of knowing if they don't have papers, if they don't have documentation. Like, they could have abducted that kid when they were 1 or 2 years old. That kid doesn't fucking know. He's going to say, yeah, it's my dad. Yeah, it's my mom. He doesn't fucking know. And under Obama, this happened. A lot of kids ended up putting them with family members or relatives who ended up being like child traffickers and shit. All these kids get trafficked. So, separating kids, first of all, is the safest thing you can do for them. The reason they do this is because in 1997, there was a Flores settlement under Bill Clinton, who they found that there was like this 17 or 15-year-old girl who was like abused severely and hurt really bad because they had lumped everybody in the same cell together, parents or adults and children. And yeah, that created a lot of issues. A lot of people were getting assaulted, abused, potentially raped. So this is why they separated the families. So when Trump says, hey, I'm just following the law, he is. And the Democrats, the liberal media, they'll always do this all the time. They'll nitpick. It's not a law. He's lying. There's no law. It's like, okay, there was a judge who made a settlement or an agreement, which is more or less the law, right? Most laws are created within the court. They're done through case law, right? So, whenever there's a ruling or something, then that is how things are going to be done from now on, and you can't really go against it. So, yes, he is following the law that the Democrats did create. And, like, if you look at their bill, what they're proposing, they just pretty much want to give families crossing the border more or less amnesty. Just let them cross and don't detain them, don't do anything, right? So, this is almost a good thing, this whole family separation thing, because it is letting us know, it's letting people see what Democrats really do want. Like, most of us understand that, yes, they want illegal immigration. Yes, they want open borders to bring in voters. But there's still a lot of people who are like, oh, no, they're not like that. They don't want illegal immigration. You're just a fear-mongering right-wing Republican or something. But, Cynthia Nixon, the first thing that she said when she's like, if I get elected, I will give illegal aliens driver's licenses. That's the first thing I'm going to do in New York if I get elected. So, this is what she's saying. There was another this guy from Minnesota who's going to be like a really executive judge or something. I can't remember what it is, but some high position in Minnesota. And he had this shirt on saying, like, open borders, right? I don't believe in borders. So, I think the libs are getting a little bit too ahead of themselves, trying to think that people really do want to open the borders, because I just saw a poll from The Economist today, and something like 30,000 people voted on it, and at least 70% of the people said they wanted closed borders. So, The Economist, the people that do read that and all that stuff, I'd say it's a good estimate or a good chunk of the populace of America, right? I know there's right and left and a lot of centrist type people who do read that. The Economist is further to the left. Don't get me wrong, right? It's not to the right. But, a lot of people are convinced that it's on the right. And there's still a lot of news agencies that they think are on the right, but really aren't anymore, or never really were. But nonetheless, this is a good estimation, I think, of the general public. And maybe even if it is a more left-wing audience, that's even worse for the Democrats because they're coming out saying, oh, we got to give these people amnesty, give them this, give them that. Trump's a horrible person. But if you look at the polls, the majority of Americans do not want illegal immigration, whether it doesn't matter what political side they're on. Obviously, it's more people on the right are going to be against it, but there's still a large percentage of people on the left. And you got to understand that a lot of immigrants who did come here legally, they look at these illegals like motherfucking pieces of shit. Like, imagine you waiting 10 years to get into a country. You know, you're spending all this money, you know, you're working your ass off, and then some asshole just crosses the border and gets let in. You know, like, why didn't you just do that then, right? And that's what a lot of people are probably thinking. It's like, well, what the fuck? Why do I have to go through all this legal process, take all this time to do this, when you can just come in here and do it for free and do it, you know, like, that's bullshit. So they are going to get a lot of hate for this. This is not going to help them in the midterms. Like, it really isn't. Not in my opinion. Especially with people like Peter Fonda coming out saying that they should rip Baron Trump from Melania's hands and give him to a pack and put him in a cage full of pedophiles. So then his mother would go up to Trump and stand up against him in his asshole policy. But it's like, man, you are insane. Like, for your mind to go to pedophiles and for him to be raped in a cage of pedophiles, like, that is insane. Like, you have a fucking screw loose. And for Twitter not to even give this guy suspension is kind of funny. Like, he's pretty much advocating, you know, violence against people. And he even told people to go to, like, the schools of ICE children and to, like, start to harass their kids and stuff. Like, this guy is insane. He called Sarah Sanders a gash, which he said is much worse than a cunt. And we should take her kids away and give them to, like, something Goebbels, like this fucking Nazi or something. So he wants to give the kids to Nazis, to pedophiles, to all this shit. And yet, this motherfucker, you know, Sony came out, Sony Pictures, because they are releasing one of his movies. They said that, no, we condemn what he says, but we're still going to release his movies, which is hilarious. And the reasons that they can, you know, the reason that ABC had to get rid of Roseanne, even though she said something way less bad, and it wasn't even bad at all. That girl looks like she is from Planet of the Apes. I'm sorry to say, but that's just what it is. She does look like that, so what she said was not racist. But Roseanne had her whole show, her whole career destroyed. They took the reruns off of her show that ran on TV, which this is where a lot of celebrities do make their money. You know, when they have a show go like 5 years, then they get the money for every time a rerun plays, right? But they took all this away, and she said something way more mild compared to what Peter Fonda said, who's advocating for kids to be raped, who's advocating for violence, and Twitter doesn't suspend him or nothing. You know, Sony Pictures comes out and still gonna air his movie, and they know they can do this because there isn't the same apparatus on the right than there is on the left, and we don't want that. We don't want to be like the left, so let's not have the same apparatus that goes around and has like a crazy angry mob every time somebody steps sort of out of line. So like ABC got ahead of the game to try to get rid of Roseanne as quickly as they can to avoid the backlash from the crazy SJWs, because we've seen, like, they do not accept apologies. They do not accept apologies. Like, just the other day, or today I saw, Shania Twain took a picture between Tegan, some dumb horror. Every opinion I ever hear from her is really stupid. But she stood next to Shania Twain, and everybody's giving her shit because they're like, do you know about Shania Twain? She came out and said she'd vote for Trump 6 months ago on an interview if she was American. And then she came out and cucked, said she was sorry, all this shit. Like, I'm so sorry. And still, people months later still hate her for it. Still remember, we remember when you endorsed Trump, you evil, evil person. So, you know, there is no point apologizing to these people because we see how they act. But we also see the double standards that, yeah, Peter Fonda, nobody's going after him. The right is not insane like the left. We don't go and create these crazy mobs to try to destroy people. But at the same time, it's like this guy deserves to get fucked. Like, I'm not saying physically, violently, don't take my words out of my mouth, but like, me personally, I'm not gonna go and watch anything that has to do with Sony ever again. Like, really, no, fuck that shit, man. If they are gonna let this slide, whereas Roseanne gets fucked, it's like, no, fuck you, Sony. like really. But it's like, I guess at the same time, I can't hold it against them too much, because it's like, yeah, all right, they're a company trying to make money and shit, and it's like, I guess they're gonna keep them because if they don't, they're gonna lose out a bunch of money or something. I don't know. And I think that people like this piece of shit should be allowed to have an opinion and shouldn't get fired and shit. And people like Roseanne should be able to say what she said and not be fired. But just the blatant double standards with this just makes me very unwilling to go out and support Sony in the future, because it's like, supporting people for what they say is one thing, or condemning it, but like, man, if you're advocating for Barron Trump to be raped by pedophiles, you're advocating people to go and harass ICE agents and their children and all this shit, like, that is fucked up, and you should probably be punished for it. And I'm gonna punish you in the sense of, yeah, I'm not gonna spend my money on anything Sony ever again. But that's the only way that I can think of doing something for that. I don't want to make speech illegal or ruin his life completely or anything like that. But it's annoying to see the amount of people coming out and defending this guy too. It's annoying to see. I've seen some people say like, oh, I feel sorry for him and what he has to go through because of what he said. It was pretty justified. And it's like, really? Like, you feel sorry for him, but not for Roseanne? It's like, that's the thing. Racism is worse to leftists than advocating raping a kid and having pedophiles rape children. This does not bother them. I find it insane that they care more about, oh, you said she looks like a monkey, than I want you to be raped by a bunch of fucking grown men. Like, what the fuck? How is being racist worse than that? Racism really doesn't hurt you in most circumstances. It really doesn't. But advocating or saying, you should put your kid in a fucking cage to be raped, like, that is, right on the line of almost telling people to go out and fucking do this, right? So, this guy, he's degenerate. He's a piece of shit. I don't know what's going on in his mind for him to think of that to begin with, for his mind to go to that. But he is working in Hollywood, so he probably does know a lot of pedophiles. He probably does, or is a pedophile himself. So he'll be like, oh, I know a few guys that I can give you to be raped. It's like, man, you people are insane. But that's all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.